All right, here we go, back with another edition of Must Start Players for Week 14, which means for most of you, we got 1 week until the playoffs commence. We got to drill down. We got to nail this week, and you got a bunch of pretty significant buys as well. A lot of injuries continue to pile up. That's what I'm here for. One quick video every single week. Give you the players that you need in the wide receiver 3, maybe the RB2 or the flex spot. Guys that you need to put you in position to win each week, to get you into the playoffs, and keep your head above water with all of these injuries and all of these buys. I'm Dave Loughran at Loughy_D on Twitter. Hit me up. It's right there. And before we get started, hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Let's make it happen. Javonte Williams was the lone bright spot on Sunday night, and not just for Denver. Between the Broncos and Chiefs, no other player showed up. But this was the breakout performance from Williams we'd all been waiting for, yet it came with Melvin Gordon's sideline. Here's the thing, though. They say players can't lose their jobs due to injury. Tell that to Alex Smith or any of the other players who have definitely lost their jobs due to injuries. Now, I'm not saying Melvin Gordon won't be involved anymore when he returns to action, and that could be in Week 14. But I feel pretty confident at this point in the season and coming off a monster game versus Kansas City, that Williams will be the lead back going forward. And let's just say for a second that I'm wrong and Gordon returns to the lineup and continues to get a 50-50 split. Well, that still wouldn't be a deal breaker because the Broncos square off against the Lions team who just got their first and only win last week. Detroit has allowed the third most fantasy points and 18 total touchdowns to opposing running backs this season and are 8-point road dogs in Denver. This will almost certainly be a run-heavy approach for Vic Fangio's Broncos, who won't need to play catch-up. Even without a positive game script last week, Williams saw 23 carries and 32 total looks. Russell Gage now has a 25.5% target share over the last 3 weeks, significantly higher than any other pass catcher in Atlanta. He's been pretty productive too, settling in as the wide receiver 8 over that span. Calvin Ridley remains sidelined, and Kyle Pitts, well, he's been a pretty big disappointment. Meanwhile, the other 2 options for Matt Ryan are Olamide Zaccheaus and Tajay Sharp. So of course, Cordarrelle Patterson is still a factor in the passing game, but he's seen his target share dwindle in recent weeks. Gage is not exactly an exciting player. We all know that, and his targets aren't coming deep downfield. But as we've talked about with players like Jalen Waddle, a high reception rate can mitigate the lack of deep targets in PPR leagues. It's also worth pointing out that Gage has been one of Ryan's favorite red zone targets over the last 2 seasons, with 24 looks inside the 20 across his last 25 starts. And most of those games came with either Julio Jones or Ridley on the field. So while the Falcons aren't a good football team, and they don't have the most potent offense in football, Gage appears to be the clear number 1 option in their passing game, and that should put him squarely in play against the Panthers. D'Onta Foreman is an insanely appealing running back option this week if you're like me and have been dealing with never-ending injuries at the position in almost every one of your leagues. I was high on Foreman before he ruptured his Achilles, and while I don't ever think he'll be a lead back again outside of temporarily, like probably this week, he'll have his best opportunity of the season to make a case for himself this Sunday. Foreman is coming off a career-high 19-carry game in Week 12, where he totaled 109 yards on 5.7 yards per carry, despite the Titans getting smoked by New England. This week sets up differently, though. Tennessee is a massive 10-point home favorite against the Jaguars, and while it's possible they'll be getting Jeremy McNichols back, Foreman should still handle the bulk of the work on the ground. And if that's the case, a big workload could be in store for him, especially given the Titans' inclination to run whenever they can, even without Derrick Henry. Hell, even since Henry went down, the Titans are running the ball at a 52% clip, one of the highest in football. And while I don't anticipate a big role in the passing game from Foreman, he could get to 20-plus carries and the goal line work in a very favorable matchup at home. I like this spot. KJ Osborn should be the primary beneficiary of Adam Thielen's absence, and we saw some of that on Sunday when he recorded his highest target count since Week 6. The Vikings already have a pretty concentrated offense, with close to 50% of the team's target share split between Thielen and Justin Jefferson. So Thielen will leave a pretty big void behind him on Thursday, and much of that can be filled by Osborn. The Steelers have been one of the worst defenses in football this season, both on the ground and through the air. But PFF ranks them 31st in pass coverage, while Football Outsiders' DVOA metric has them marginally better at 26th. And Osborn, who's been playing just north of 50% of snaps over the last few weeks, was on the field for 92% of offensive plays last Sunday. He ran a route on 96% of dropbacks and was targeted 7 times to boot. Osborn obviously doesn't become a must-start player in the sense that you're benching other good receivers for him, But with 4 teams on a bye and the injuries across the league continuing to accumulate, he's got to be a good flex for those in need. And while we're at it, Tyler Conklin is also a strong tight end play this week against Pittsburgh. He's the tight end 9 since week 6 and should see a considerable uptick in opportunities with Thielen out. Conklin saw 9 targets in last week's embarrassing loss to the Lions and can see a healthy dose of looks this week too. I know you're probably agonizing over whether or not you can play Saquon Barkley this week, and I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, I think you have to do it. Barkley didn't pop off for a huge game on Sunday, but he still saw 20 total looks, of which 9 came in the passing game. And we're getting word now that Jake Fromm, who was recently signed off the Bills practice squad, could be starting Sunday with Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon tending to injuries. I'm not sure how much it even matters though. Barkley's a guy you drafted in the late first, early second round, and is once again positioned to get a ton of work in the passing game on a dismal Giants offense. They're big road dogs in Los Angeles and will likely be forced to throw quite a bit. And we really have no idea how many Giants receivers will be sidelined this week either. But ultimately, we've seen so many running backs produce big fantasy totals on awful offenses, but they have to be heavily used in the passing game, which Barkley definitely is. And honestly, I don't know how much this matters because the Giants' run blocking stinks and they'll likely be playing from behind, but few teams are worse at stopping the run than the Chargers, who are 31st in yards per game and 30th in rushing touchdowns allowed. If you love fantasy football and you haven't played daily fantasy football yet, well, I got an amazing offer for you. And my only hesitation in telling you this is that you're just going to stop watching my videos here on this channel. But that's cool. You can head over to our main channel, the DFS one, and well, we'll be square. But check this out. If you sign up for Yahoo Fantasy as a new user, got to be a new user, using the link below in the description and deposit just $10 or more if you'd like, but only has to be $10. You will get 1 full free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's everything on the site. And it's not just football, baseball, basketball, hockey, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, even esports. If they have contests out there, we've got content for it. And all of the tools you need to win at Yahoo as well. Ownership projections, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, the lineup builder, and so much more, all of which are built by the #1 ranked DFS player out there, Awesemo himself. Won millions of dollars using these very tools I'm talking about right now. So check it out. Go to Yahoo. Sign up using the link in the description. Deposit $10 or more. They will send their information over to us, and we will email you with the steps to get your free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum and $90 value. You got to check DFS out. You're going to love it. And, well, you can use all of the tools on the site and, of course, follow along every single day of the week with our DFS content on the Awesemo YouTube channel as well. Check it out. Link in the description below. We'll see you over there. Jarvis Landry could have a big game this week versus Baltimore. Sure, the Browns' passing game has been anemic at best of late, but I don't think it could be worse than Baltimore's secondary after they lost Marlon Humphrey for the year. The Ravens have already allowed a league-high 13 receptions of 40-plus yards and 54 receptions of 20-plus yards with 8 yards per attempt surrendered to opposing passers. Now they're without Humphrey on top of several other injuries at the cornerback position. In fact, they're so thin that John Harbaugh said last week that he went for 2 instead of kicking the extra point for the tie to send it to overtime against the Steelers because he didn't have any cornerbacks left. Landry is coming off his best game of the season where he racked up 6 receptions for 111 yards and 10 targets against this very Ravens team and has a 26% target share since returning from injury in week 7. And no one else is above 15% over that span. He also has 423 air yards over those 6 games too, which really isn't bad given the type of receiver we know him to be. I like Landry a lot this week, and I like Donovan Peoples-Jones if you're in a real pinch. He has a 16.38 and averages almost 19 yards per reception, which lines up very nicely against the Ravens defense that's allowed more big passing plays than any other team and is completely ravaged by injury. I'm starting to believe that maybe Russell Wilson's finger is improving, or at least I'd hope. He definitely scaled things back a bit last week in an impressive win over San Francisco with an 8 out of 7.6 compared to 11.1 in the first 3 weeks since returning to action. But Wilson still attempted 5 deep passes and now has attempted more deep balls than any other quarterback since week 10. So unsurprisingly, Tyler Lockett leads the league in deep targets over that span with 11, while DK Metcalf is third with 9. Lockett has just been so much more reliable than Metcalf, and despite Wilson's struggles, has still been a serviceable receiver. He'll have a shot at turning in a big game this weekend too, because the Seahawks run game sucks, and although they'll probably look to lean on it as 7-point road favorites in Houston, It's hard to see Alex Collins, Rashad Penny, and Adrian Pearson doing enough to minimize the passing game. And yes, Houston's run defense is dreadful, but the Seahawks' rushing attack is far from impressive either. The hope here is for Wilson to be efficient like he was last game when he connected on 30 of 37 passes, but also to be able to connect with his two top pass catchers for some big plays against the bottom-ranked secondary. And again, it's been ugly in Seattle lately, but Lockett and Metcalf still make up over 50% of Wilson's total targets on the season. We got to go back to the well. Be sure to head over to Awesemo.com and check out everything we have to offer, from DFS to fantasy football, sports betting, and a whole lot more, all of which headed up by the #1 ranked daily fantasy sports player in the world, Awesemo himself. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.